Any reason to avoid that?
You may create different reasons. You may have set up different reasons. Fundamentally, there are no reasons. It can represent a path of least resistance in physical terms to moving forward. But again, you have to make your own determinations because you have politicized all of these things. We cannot tell you what to do because we cannot intervene in your political decisions. But the idea is that fundamentally, aside from other situations and conditions you may have set up within yourself that would give you an actual reason to avoid this, then you have to remember you're the one creating the reasons to avoid the idea of taking advantage of what has been offered to you in physical terms as a path of least resistance. But again, we have to leave that up to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
And then from your perspective, what advice would you give us and our governments to turn climate change around at the present time?
You cannot turn it around. The only thing you could do is shift yourself to a parallel reality where it hasn't gone as far as it already has in your reality experience. So the idea is that if you're going to stay in the process of mitigation and management of the climate change that has already occurred in the timelines you have already chosen to participate in, then certainly you can restore the things that have been destroyed on the earth, such as forests. You can do many different kinds of things to mitigate the use of polluting energies. You can allow yourselves to move forward in the utilization and discovery of non-polluting energies. So there are many things you can do to mitigate and manage the idea, but in your timeline, you can't turn it around. You've already passed the point where it's going to continue to some degree.
So when did we pass that point?
In the 80s.
And how are we far gone enough that the conveyor in the ocean could stop?
Yes, could, not will, could. You can still mitigate and manage some of that. But again, you would have to unify and act quickly. But again, even if you go farther than that, many of you will still find new ways to experience your reality and shift into parallel realities where the mitigation would allow you the opportunity to investigate new lifestyles, new experiences of what a city is all about, new communities that would be more conducive to living in harmony with nature, which may be part of the point that you are learning in choosing this particular timeline experience as you shift through different billions of parallel realities per second.
What about the ice sheet in Antarctica that has lately been noticing that it is decline or destabilizing faster than they expected, and it's about the size of Florida. So
much more of that will destabilize and melt away into your oceans, raising the sea levels to some degree, which can cause more things like storm surges and climate changes and stronger tornadoes, stronger hurricanes, sea level rising, and so on and so forth. So again, it's about learning to unify, learning to work together so that you can create a new society that may have to move forward by doing things very differently than the way you have done. But at the same time, don't let that stop you from creating new forests, planting new trees, finding new ways to create energy that are non-polluting. This is all part of the package you have signed on for. So move forward as best as you can.
Okay.
We will have help in doing all of this. We are helping you, others are helping you. It'll be a very different world, but you can learn to live in it, and you can actually experience the joy of changing the way you do things by creating a whole new lifestyle for all of the people on your planet if you're willing to work together.
Okay. That's a hopeful sign. I mean, something like that ice sheet, if it were to collapse into the ocean, with it being that size, how imminent is something like that?
Within 5 years at the most.
Okay.
As we read the energy now.
Very exciting. So some more hybrid questions, hybrid children questions. How are beings from other star systems like the Anunnaki and Syrians able to visit Earth without damaging their physical bodies? Do their planets have oxygen, water, etc., like Earth?
Yes. They wouldn't necessarily have landed on your planet if they didn't have the ability to either adapt or survive in the environment as it is, or bring protective equipment with them, just like you do when you visit your moon. So the idea, again, is it's not that difficult. They're close enough. Remember, you are genetically connected to the Anunnaki. Therefore, in a sense, you are very much like them. So yes, they were oxygen breathing, or, well, atmosphere breathing in the way that your atmosphere is constructed, similar enough that they could adapt, just as you could adapt to certain planets like ours with a little time. So the idea is there are many that can adapt to your atmosphere. Those that can't would bring their protective equipment with them to be able to survive on the surface.
So how did the early contactees in our history handle the higher vibration of the ETs they were in contact with?
Who said that all of the ETs they were in contact with had higher vibrations to the point where they couldn't handle it? You're making an assumption. When we talk about the idea of not being able to handle our frequency or the frequency of some other ET races, that doesn't necessarily generally apply across the board to every single ET race. Humanity has made some strides in its evolution, making you more vibrationally compatible to some ET races, especially those that may be your distant cousins, and so on and so forth. Plus, there may be some ETs that are willing to adapt their frequencies to your reality in order to interact with you. And again, remember, we have often said that some of these encounters don't take place in what you consider to be your normal reality. You may actually be having these encounters in a slightly shifted vibrational reality that is germane and vibrationally compatible with both humans and the ETs. So never assume that things are just normal, like they're landing on your planet in your reality, interacting with you in your vibrational state. You may be slightly shifted and not even know it. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that all ETs are vibrating at a frequency that is something beyond what you can handle if you make even the slightest upgrade in your frequency.
Like, what would you assess Pleiadian frequency at?
Pleiadian frequency is higher than yours, but not out of reach. So again, they may shift the vibration into a different reality that's vibrationally compatible with both of you in that reality. Again, it may not be happening in what you consider to be your physical reality, even though it may seem so. But they're not that far beyond you. Many of you could make the shift into their vibration, and many of you have made the shift into their vibratory frequency. So the idea is simply to recognize that you've come a long way. There are many that are in a, shall we say, shamanistic way, able to match their frequencies. Love yourself unconditionally, and you won't be that far away from the frequency that they experience for themselves.
I know it's interesting that the way that we prepare for contact is to let go of our negative beliefs, which keep our frequency low.
Yes.
Very interesting. And what about the hybrid children? Like, what frequency range would you say they will be the ones that come here?
Some of them may be able to lower and raise their frequency in a way that would make them slightly more vibrationally compatible with some humans, but for a while it will take some time to adapt to your reality and some time for humanity to adapt to them. But on average, most of them will not necessarily go lower than 180,000 cycles per second, and most of them will average somewhere in the mid 200,000 range, at least.
And the majority of the people on our planet currently are below 100,000?
Correct.
Okay. But those of us that are exploring this path of transformation and letting go of negative energies and things like that,
usually rise above that.
What range is that generally
On average, the people that are willing to open up and explore the idea and expand the idea of their consciousness, willing to let go of fear-based and negative belief systems, willing to express being of service to all and unconditional love as best as possible, can certainly at least average 150,000 cycles per second to 190,000 cycles per second. So there is an overlap there between the hybrid children and humanity.
And just so that for those that may not be familiar with this, 333,000 cycles per second is the transformation from physical to non-physical energy, right?
Yes.
And so that gives you an idea that, and the Essassani are running close to 333,000 cycles per second, right?
Close. We operate only in the 300,000s and go up and down according to what we need to go up and down for a variety of reasons. But yes, the transition from physical to non-physical reality is 333,000 cycles per second, although your scientists don't yet understand what it is that exactly measures.
So the Anunnaki who created the Homo sapien that went against their rules, so to speak, what frequency range were those beings?
They were operating somewhere around the 100,000, 120,000, 130,000 vibrations per second range.
So it also shows how you can make great advances technologically, but not necessarily have a high frequency to a point, right?
As witnessed by what happened with the beings, the parallel reality humans that mutated into the Greys. Yes, they had a very advanced technology, but their spirituality was lacking.
What frequency range were they functioning at?
In the midst of the idea of the destruction of their world, they were only operating somewhere around 60 to 70,000 cycles per second.
Gosh, it's just amazing. But at the same time, you've said that we really don't have to be concerned about negative ETs because their frequency range would not be compatible with ours in some way or something.
Correct. You would have to match that frequency for yourself to have any interaction awareness at all. And even the idea of interactional awareness actually comes with the idea of raising your frequency. Because remember, negative energy segregates and separates and divides, whereas higher frequencies integrate.
So most of the ETs that we're interacting with then would be higher frequency ETs, yes?
High enough that they pose no threat to you.
I see.
Even though there may be misunderstandings, even though they may have very different ways of interacting, nothing that you're interacting with as humans on Earth are
loneliness for the children. Any suggestions on how to work with that?
Well, again, they're thinking in terms of separation. They're thinking in terms of negative energy. You have to allow yourself to be in a positive state to feel the connections that are always there. Remember that grief may actually simply be the negative interpretation of being contacted by spirits. Because if you're interpreting the connection that they're sending to you, the energy they're sending to you, as if they are lost to you, you will experience their love in the form of grief. Grief is the negative side of love being sent from spirit. So anytime you may suddenly feel the grief of the loss of someone physical, you may actually be receiving a communication from them, but interpreting it in a negative way, interpreting it as if you are not connected to them, thus experiencing their love connection as grief. So stop experiencing the idea or defining the idea as if they are lost to you or truly separated from you. You just need to reach out to them in a different way and know that you're always connected.
And back to that question of frequency, one person asked if basically, are there any beings who vibrate millions or even billions of cycles per second? And if so, what are they like?
Well, they would mostly be non-physical in different dimensions of reality, beyond sometimes even what you can imagine. Of course, the idea in general of what you would call God, Goddess, all that is, would be operating at an infinite frequency.
Oh. And so as far as the hybridization agenda goes, why is the hybridization agenda in our best interest?
Because it's part of Earth's evolutionary path that you've all chosen to become the sixth hybrid race, to advance yourself in a variety of ways that will open up access to the galaxies of the universe to you. This is the way you're improving yourself. This is the way you're reclaiming the genetics that the Anunnaki shut down within you when they created Homo sapiens. By injecting the idea of other genetics within yourself, you supersede what the Anunnaki did, overcome and overwhelm it, and expand your energy field to the high frequencies that will allow you to expand from the Earth into the galaxy.
Okay. And can you give us a permission slip to help us connect with our hybrid children?
Nature is always a wonderful permission slip because the hybrid children are very strongly aware of their connection to nature, which is why when they come to live among you, most of them will take names from nature: flowers, trees, river, rocks, mountains, so on and so forth. So the idea of allowing yourself to be out in nature, to be one with nature, to be as nature, will allow a stronger connection as a permission slip to the hybrid children who are very familiar with their connection and expression as nature. Of course, as always, follow the formula.
Right. And so in closing, you know, this is the end of 2021. We're about to go into a new year and everything. And a lot of things are uncertain to us as far as what's going to happen with pandemic, with all the changes that we're going through with contact. Is there anything you'd like to share with us about sort of a guiding mechanism or how to approach the eye of the needle and 2022 as we move in that direction?
You may have uncertainty about things, but you don't have to be uncertain about what being yourself and acting on the formula will do in terms of propelling you forward in the most positive, joyful, loving way. That you can be certain of. So even if you choose to experience uncertainties, understand that these are there for the purpose of process, for the purpose of discovering beliefs that don't work for you and letting them go. And you can be certain that that's what that's for. Be certain that your uncertainty is for the purpose of knowing yourself more clearly, expanding yourself, accelerating yourself. So use uncertainty in a certain way. Be confident. Be confident. Even if you feel you lack confidence, you are confident about that. So use your confidence in the direction that you prefer. Again, 2022 will be the year, the orbit preceding the beginning of the window of contact. So allow yourself through the eye of the needle to streamline, to reduce yourself to your essential self as best as you can, to use everything to your advantage by staying in a positive state, and to strip away those things that don't work for you, that don't belong to you, that aren't in alignment with your core vibration. Be clear within yourself and transparent within yourself as to what is truly happening between the differences of discernment of excitement and anxiety. Let go of those things and don't be afraid to face the processes that will bring you into more recognition of yourself. We are now beginning to give you an exercise that we have called the mirror reflection, which we will take you through in a moment. But first, again, let us simply express to you our unconditional love and our joy and excitement at the processes you are willing and in agreement of going through that will allow you to experience more of who you truly are. We wish you happy holidays, happy New Year, and now it's time to face yourself in the mirror. Your